Gary Long is part of, I don't know, do you call yourself something? Like the shadow government or is it the Suspect Sky team?
Team, yeah.
Team, yeah, he's a member of the Suspect Sky team. And I don't know, you guys sometimes are on Fly on the Wall, is that true?
Yeah. Sometimes.
So these guys have been studying the sun, studying all of the sciences that the mainstream is not telling us about. And Gary's a guy that goes a little deeper because he has more experience than most. If you don't know yet, the older you get, the more you know, typically. That's how it works. And so Gary is going to be talking about some things that are in plain sight that all of you know about. I mean, it's embedded in the megalithic structures. It's embedded in the layout of cities. It's embedded in your money. It's everywhere. And these are magical numbers. So I'll let Gary, the expert, talk about it. So Gary Long.
Thanks, Diamond. It's great to be here. And I want to thank all of you guys for coming in and making a trip to this wonderful city of Denver. How many people are from Denver? See, the vast majority came from somewhere else. That's exciting. Welcome. Who's from Virginia? Dang. All righty, because that's where I'm from. I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains in western part of Virginia, so don't hold that against me. I've spent most of my life trying to learn not to talk like this, but it just didn't work out so well. But it's actually stressful because I've worked in some places where people look down on you because you talk like this. And you had to learn to talk in the most proper way. But forget that. That's too stressful. Let's be real. Yeah, I grew up in the country, in the mountains. But one thing was weird. I didn't really care that much about what my peer group was interested in. For the most part, they liked fast cars and like country music. That really didn't appeal to me. I like to go up in the woods and the mountains and look for things. I had this explorer mindset. I wanted to find arrowheads. I like to think about the ancient peoples that once walked that area and look for maybe evidence of them being here in the past. That was me. And so I ended up taking a really weird trip in life. So I worked in military and government intelligence for a long time. One of the neat things about that is you learn how to do research. If you have typically people who do that have a exploring type of mindset. So that was a big benefit. So that's why we're here today. We'll talk about these magical numbers hidden in plain sight. All right. We obviously come from a very ancient history. It's amazing when you look at it. People like Graham Hancock, people know who he is. Here's his latest book, America Before. That really appealed to me because that, from growing up, that was my interest. And he had some really interesting discoveries in there. I highly recommend it. Excuse me, God. He was talking about the altitude and the climate. Okay. So he found there's one thing in there that really ties into our talk today. And it's discovery that the ability to recognize and identify geometric structures is hardwired into our brain from birth. That's interesting. When you think about that, that's interesting. So we have all these people, we've descended from a long line of people who have been here forever, some longer than others, because I found this picture of Keith Richards playing with his first band, the Rolling Megaliths. But yeah, I mean, it looks like him, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's a picture from Sumer. The conventional wisdom says that's the cradle of civilization. Maybe not. Interesting thing about Sumerians, they showed up from nowhere, fully organized, advanced society. Just appeared. Well, I don't believe that. Is it possible that the Sumerians were survivors from an earlier cataclysm? They spoke a language that no one knows how it sounds. It has no precursor that we're aware of linguistically. The only thing we finally figured out about the way they communicate or left records, cuneiform scripts. And they baked those into clay tablets. Why would you do that? Why would you build massive ziggurats, monolithic sites, megalithic sites, I'm sorry, and bake into hard objects? It strikes me that they had in mind that they wanted to save, they wanted to have something that would save, that would be durable, that would last over ages, unlike papyri, woodcuts. But what we see here is the origin of something called a meme. Now, popular science today, or popular culture rather, will tell you that that's just something funny that's being pictured put on Facebook. Actually, meme has a very ancient source. An element of a culture or system of behavior that may be considered to be passed from one individual to another by non-genetic means, especially imitation. So isn't that a great way to store critical ancient history and knowledge and pass it forward into generations? Hey, how you doing? All right, who knows who these two characters are? Enkidu. Yeah, Gilgamesh and his good buddy Enkidu. And this is a presentation of the Epic of Gilgamesh, but it's in Akkadian. We finally figured out what Akkadian probably sounded like. Oh, thank you. And we figured that out because we could backtrack from Mesopotamian forward back, because they all use cuneiform. So we got to understand what that sounded like, kind of backtracked it. So now this is what Akkadian sounded like.
Gilgamesh anashashuma izakara ana utana pishtim uki. Anatalakuma utana pishti. Minatuka ulshana ki yatima ata. Uata ulshanata ki yatima ata. Umuka libi ana epeshtukunti. Achi nada.
Have you ever heard anything like that? Sounded like that?
Sounds like Indian.
Sorry?
Sounds like Indian speak.
It sounds like Native American, doesn't it?
Sounds a lot related to Hebrew also.
Pardon?
Sounds a lot related to a lot
Yeah.
of words and other sounds.
That's still quite quick.
Sounds similar to Hebrew.
Hebrew, yeah. It is the original Semitic language. Yeah, Akkadian is the original Semitic language. Okay. So anyway, out of all that, the Sumerians created a whole lot of things. They created something called the sexagesimal system, base 60. And base 60 has come forward from that time all the way to today. Originated with ancient Sumerians. Now, did it originate there, or is that just something they knew anyway? Did it come from a precursor? It's used for measuring time, angles, and geographic coordinates. That's the same as today. It has 12 factors. And it's basically a very efficient number. It's efficient to be used in things like engineering, geographic location, directions, dates, because they used to believe that the year was 360 days. So they broke it down. Right? Time, right? But there's also there are other interesting numbers embedded in all that. Imagine for a moment that this is actually 360. Right. 3 plus 6 equals, we'll come down to the next cardinal direction, 9. 1 plus 8, 9. 2 plus 7, 9. So 9 represents all the cardinal directions. 9's an important number, and we'll see how much so. Who's our good buddy Pythagoras? Number rules the universe. How many people know about Pythagoras? What thing are you taught? That's about it, right? There's a lot more to him that meets the eye. And for some reason, your educational system doesn't want to tell you all this. He was born in Samos, about 570 BC. He was a philosopher, most famously, mathematician. He was one of the original oracles of the Delphi, you might say. He was extremely well respected, and he created a society called the Pythagoreans. Turned out to be a secret society. He learned what he knew from a fellow by the name of Thales, who learned what he knew when he was in Egypt. And they think what they knew came from Sumer. And it was all about mathematics. The 3, 4, 5 right triangle, all right? Pythagorean theorem. You can do that as a 6, 10, 8, or a 9, 12, 15. It all comes out the same. But what do these things, what's that really good for, though, practically speaking? How many people like to garden? Like raised beds, you know? You have to make a right angle, 4 right angles actually, do a proper raised bed. Pardon?
Research plots.
And so if you measure out lines for 3 inches, it's 4 inches, or 4 feet, 4 yards, doesn't matter. And you connect those exactly and measures to come exactly to 5, that is an exact right angle. That's a guaranteed right angle without using a square.
To calculate flight distance over a street.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so as you do that, you can do a 3, 4, 5. But when you add all that up, it equals 12. In Pythagorean math, he reduces everything down to 1 through 9. All larger numbers are immaterial. Everything comes down to 1 through 9. Oh, so you have 1 and 2, and you get 3. Then increase it to a 6, 8, 10 triangle. That's 24. 2 plus 4 equals 6. You have the 9, 12, 15 equals 36. 3 plus 6 equals 9. So you have 3, 6, 9 repeatedly embedded into the formula. Interesting. And especially 9. 9 is incredibly interesting because it's one of those numbers that's both here and not here simultaneously. For example, when I add up a long string of numbers, let's say 6, 8, 9. So 6 and 8 is 14, and 9 is 23, right? Did I get that right? Okay. So take the 9 away, it's gone. 6 and 8 is? Wait, let's do it. 6 and 8 is 14, and 9 is 23. Take the 9 away.
14 is 5. 14 is 5.
Right, there you go, right. 2 and 3 is 5. And so 6 and 8 and 14 is also 5. So the 9 is immaterial. It still comes out to 5. You can do that with any number string. And if you want to, if you have a really long string of numbers, just pull out the 9s, throw those away. Take the factors that equal 9, throw those away. And what's left is the result. Play with it, it's fun.
If imaginary numbers are at the heart of quantum mechanics, then presumably they are an inherent part of the universe. Or are they merely a mathematical construct? In other words, were imaginary numbers discovered or invented?
Oh, well, that's the key question, one of the key questions in the philosophy of mathematics. Mathematicians don't like to admit it, but if you look back at the history of mathematics, a lot of important mathematics was developed because it seemed to be a pattern or a game that nature or God also plays, not just a game that one mathematician invented one Sunday afternoon when he had nothing to do.
I don't know if you could read all that or not, and I apologize for the speaker having disappeared itself out of here. That's very unfortunate. Okay, so Tesla, most people have heard him. He's a pretty cool guy. But it seems like the controllers of the time didn't think so much of him, especially when they found out he wanted to build Wardenclyffe and turn it into a free energy site transmitting electricity. J.P. Morgan said, that's enough of that. Give me back my money. But Tesla did some amazing things. I've read all his biographies. I've read his field notes from Colorado. Pretty interesting stuff. And he's way gone. He's way up here. And how he became so, I don't know. Anyway, he was reputed to have made the comment about 369. I cannot personally verify that. However, it's sensible, it's reasonable that would be something he would lock into. But what are some other things that we all might be familiar with? Now let's start having some fun. Maybe I can get to talk about it. A stitch in time saves 9. Who ever heard of that? Wow. How about Cloud9? I want Cloud9, right? You know that. How about Dressed to the Nines? 15 minutes of fame. That one, so we got to do a little Pythagorean math on that. 1 + 5 is 6. Hat trick, hockey fan. 3 goals. A menage a trois, but don't do it in here. That's a 3. A 9-day wonder. That one's a little bit more, a little less known. And basically refers to somebody who's a hot shot, who's a fast learner, who's a fast, high achiever in a short period of time. 1 over the 8's old English nautical phrase. That means if you drink one more glass of grog beyond 8, you're in the floor. So 1 over 8 = 9. Who's gotten a 3rd degree in here before? Yeah. The whole 9 yards. Know that one, right? Especially from the South. You know that.
What does that mean?
I'm glad you asked that question because a guy reminded me yesterday where it came from. A belt of 50 caliber ammunition is 9 yards long. So in World War II, they directed gunners to give him the whole 9 yards. That's where that came from. 3rd time lucky, or 3 times a charm. Right? 3 sheets to the wind. Oh, yeah. I know nobody in here does that. So. 3 strikes, and you're out. And we'll get into that a little bit more. So you see in our popular culture how these memes are embedded. And why is that? Why does that happen? And even further back in popular culture, these memes were there. The inch was invented, as they say, the width of King Edgar's thumb. Officially designated as an inch, it was 3 barley corns wide. Interesting. Of course, then you have 12 inches, which equals 3, which makes a foot. And the foot is a measurement determined by the length of King Charlemagne's foot, they say, in 1305 to be 36 barley corns, which is an eye. 3 feet equals 36 inches, which is an eye. An acre, this was the one that shocked me when I was doing research, because I never thought about it. 66 times 660 feet, or 43,560 feet, which equals a 9 when you reduce it to that in Pythagorean talk. A mile, 5,280 feet, which reduces to a 6. So we see 3, 6s, and 9s all throughout social history. And Tesla apparently recognized that fact. Now, go pick on Adrian, my partner. He talked about FRBs and dispersion vectors for those of you who were here. And what you see here, here's the original baseline FRB dispersion measure distance, frequency distance, 187.5. Pythagoras would say that equals 3. Then we had them come in on multiples or harmonics actually of 187.5. So 375 equals 6. 562.5 equals 9. So forth, so on. So that message is embedded in FRBs. That's pretty significant if it's true, because that would indicate that this convention, this 369 geometric relationship, is not just common to Earth, it's common to the universe. Let's talk a little bit more about waves, frequencies, because that's kind of obscure to a lot of people. It was to me until I got to learn better. This is representative of an AC wave, alternating current wave, okay, like a radio wave. When you talk about bandwidth, the distance measured in meters, the top to the top, that's the bandwidth of a signal. The frequency of a signal is how many times you can compress these and how many times they oscillate per second. Okay, that's clear as mud, but that's basically how it works. When you talk about things like FRBs being on harmonics, let's say the fundamental frequency is the lime green wave, and you can't see the complete wavelength because it goes off the chart. Then you have the first harmonic, or second harmonic, basically, and it intersects at nodal points. The third harmonic does the same. These are all representative of those FRB numbers that came in, right? So is that an accident? 86%? Hard to believe that that's a coincidence. And getting into any amateur radio operators in here? Okay. That's my call sign. The FCC gave me one when I first passed my test and stuff. They gave me this call sign. It was like KB4 button. Nobody could pronounce it. I couldn't pronounce it. Come on, man. So I had to petition for a personal call sign, use my initials, that way I could remember. So that's anyway how that works. Wavelength in meters. Now this one 369. Hello. Now this is radio science. Let's say, for example, at this catastrophe, grid down, all you got, all you can find is an old amateur radio and a battery. That's all you need to make it work. Except you have to have an antenna. And the length of the antenna is critical, because if it's not a resonant length based on the frequency you use, you'll blow up the radio.
Oh, is that the frequency you're talking about that you tune the radio to?
Yes,
Or-
yes.
So how do they switch between different channels and how do they do that on the radio? You only see them turn dials.
Yeah, but you have a tuning dial.
Okay.
Let's just say there's a lot of different frequencies in amateur radio. Let's say 14.25 megahertz. Now, we have to figure out now, we found a bunch of wire, now we got to figure out how to cut it. So there's formulas for that. So, it's 14.25 megahertz, and you divide that into 234, and you come up with a very close to a resonant quarter wave antenna. If you had a lot more wire, you could do that frequency into 468, and you come up with a half wave. Getting better. This is a really weird one. A 5/8 wave. Just remember that chart. 5/8 wouldn't make sense. That's a resonant frequency, would it? However, it is. As a matter of fact, it's more efficient than that one. And no one can tell you exactly why, but I would submit. Who's familiar with the golden ratio? What's the basic formula for that? It's 8/5, right? So the reciprocal of the golden ratio becomes a resonant antenna. But then you have a loop antenna. That's a big, that's a sound, a loop of wire. It's a very efficient one too. You divide frequency into 1005, divide the resonant length. Now what do you notice about all those numbers? 39996. That's science. I mean, nobody made this up. This is fact. I skipped this one, but it's really not that important. If you want to know what the frequency is, the wavelength, rather, you divide the frequency into 300. That'll give you the wavelength. 369. This is a funny one. Remember we were talking about nines exist and don't exist simultaneously. Well, a 9-sided polygon is called a nonagon. Somebody trying to say something, somebody being a smart ass, right? Thinking we wouldn't catch on, right? And that's what a 9-sided nonagon would look like. And if you made an antenna in that configuration, which is a very efficient one, roping it off here, equidistant polygon. Look at the amazing propagation pattern.
So you have a 40-degree spread on each one?
Huh?
40-degree spread on each one?
Yeah. Look at the amazing signal propagation pattern that comes off of that. A 6-lobe pattern.
What do you consider that in conjunction with this 5G thing you're talking about?
Now, 5G is a whole different conversation. But yeah, we could probably talk about that. We talk about that on our podcast, but yeah. But that was a pretty elegant picture, wasn't it? Oh, Leonardo Fibonacci. Everybody just thinks that all he did was figure out how many rabbits had come out. You started with 2, and over a period of time, you'd end up with the sequence. Well, probably a little bit more to it than that. As you can see, the Fibonacci sequence, who's familiar with this and who's not? Okay. Basically what it is, you start with 0, and you add 0 and 1, you come out with 1. Then you add 1 and 1, you come out with 2. You add 2 and 3, come out with 5. You just, each subsequent number added back. Well, that's pretty cool. And we'll see a video that makes it really cool. But it creates an infinite sequence that goes on ad infinitum. So what does this mean? What's the big deal with this? Well, Fibonacci was a very well-educated fellow. His dad was a customs officer in Italy, in southern Italy, and so he had a lot of dealings with North Africa. Most of Fibonacci's education was the Moorish North Africans, where he learned a whole lot about Hindu Arabic numbers. He's the one that introduced those to the Western culture. So Fibonacci is a little more interesting than just a rabbit per just the day, whatever. Okay, golden ratio. Who knows that? Of course, everybody, right? One of the things that's funny about the Fibonacci number or sequence, as it says, you can divide one into the next, and you come up with 1.618 every time. It gets more accurate the longer up you go. So the Fibonacci sequence is directly related to the golden ratio. That one. You can see 1 and 2 is 3, 2, 2 is 5, 8, 13, 21, 34 ad infinitum. It all ties back to something that Fibonacci knew, right? Did you catch what was going on with that? Because that moves pretty quickly.
Yeah, is there a reference we can use that to go back to that?
Yeah,
I'd like to study that. There's no way I'm gonna catch that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that moves pretty quickly, but essentially you see the extension of the Fibonacci sequence, then it's reduced by the Pythagorean method to single digits. Then when you add it all together, it all comes up to 9, all the way up. How does that happen? Or as one guy used to say, ain't that something? Right? Ain't that something? It really is. It's mind-boggling. And he starts seeing all these things stacking up one on top of the other. If you were just happen to see one or two of these things isolated, it wouldn't mean anything. When you start putting it all together, you start seeing a pattern emerging. And it's a pattern of a self-organizing and self-replicating system. That's hard to deny. Now, if this is such a system, of what is it emblematic? What does this actually represent? Right? The DNA helix is organized in line with the golden ratio. So you see this, one of my friends likes to say the Matrix was not a movie. He's probably right. because it appears that to be a matrix. And it's based on an elegance and simplicity. All right. So who knows this guy? Alan Turing. Yeah, good. Yeah, he was a principal guy that broke the Enigma code back during World War II. He was like a super smart guy, extremely brilliant. You know, The Imitation Game is the name of the movie. If you haven't seen it, you probably enjoy it. And there's a video, kind of a documentary, that TruthStream Media put out called Alan Turing, Cybernetics and the Secrets of Life. It's a very good movie. It goes in a great deal of detail about the other stuff that Alan Turing was interested in. Cybernetics. Who's familiar with that? Yeah. Cybernetics comes from the Greek word cybernetikos, or good at steering, directing, organizing, right? Referring to a ship's or boat helmsman. Then a fellow by the name of Norbert Wiener defines cybernetics, the science of control and communications in animals and machines. The definition relates closely to the theory of automatic control. So if you think about AI, it ties right into that. Also mentions the nervous system. What's the director of the nervous system? Right. So the brain would be the director. The rest of the system would be the pattern creation, right? Turing pointed to the significance of the Fibonacci sequence as the blueprint of life. Embryology, morphology, and that vibrations bring it all to life. The code will manifest, and it's actually all the fundamentals of life script, powered by something called logos. Who's familiar with that term? Yeah. Powered by logos.
What is logos?
Well, logos is a very old Greek word relating to the Word of God. Remember the vibrations required? Right. What's it say in the Bible that God said, let there be light, and there was? The voice is a vibration. If you look at voice on the tonoscope with sand on it, it creates lots of geometric images, different depending on the frequencies. So the logos is whatever the directive force is. And we'll get into Jungian. That gets a little crazy. But if you want to look at it, there's a link. Western philosophy, psychology, rhetoric, religion, derived from the Greek word that means also ground, plea, opinion, expectation, word, speech, account, reason, proportion, and discourse. So powered by logos, this infinitely simplistic but complex yet system that fuels creation, that fuels reality. But that's all like crazy stuff, right? So let's talk about something else, more fun. Who's a baseball fan here? Anybody? Man, I used to love to go to Orioles games and we'd get a bag of peanuts and lemonade.
0-2. Struck him out swinging. 0-2. Did he go? He did. He did it. An immaculate inning from Chris Sale. 9 strikes, and he blows him away.
Wait a minute. Hang on. Hold the phone. Hold the phone. What's up with that? Has anyone ever noticed all the 3s, 6s, and 9s that are in the game of baseball? They are. The big controversy has been recent. This is what got me onto this angle of inquiry. That it's always been thought that Abner Doubleday invented baseball. Right. Then a lot of people came out and said, "No, he didn't. No, he didn't. He did not." So I said, "Wait a minute," because I grew up with Abner Doubleday. So I'm going to prove that he did. So I went on a journey, and of course, at Doubleday Field was where the first baseball game was played. What year is that? Right? And it was in Cooperstown, New York. That's where he lived there. He grew up there. But he was also a very influential and well-known Union general in the Civil War. He was present at the seizure of the South Carolina. What's the name of it?
Fort Sumter?
Fort Sumter, thank you. I lost that. He was present at the seizure of Fort Sumter. And he was well renowned among his peers. So this guy was, there was more to him than met the eye. Whoever heard of this person? Anybody know who that is? Who is that?
Blavatsky.
Madame Blavatsky, the Russian-born, I guess you'd say kind of a secret society type person. She and a fellow by the name of Orcutt, I believe, created something known as the Theosophy Society. Anybody heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. They're the tenets of the Theosophical Society. And you can't see it, but the last one says to investigate the unexplained laws of nature. And yeah, thank you. And the powers latent in humankind. Now, wouldn't that kind of sound like somebody that might be interested in sacred geometry? And, yeah, think so, maybe. Well, okay. What about baseball? We'll start out with the easy one. 60 feet, 60 feet, 30 feet. Arbitrary. It's a geometric.
Who laid out the first that grid in baseball?
This guy, Abner Doubleday. And now to continue, pitcher's mound's 18 feet a 9 from the plate, right? But it gets better. If I can find the cursor. There we go. There are 108 double stitches on a baseball. That equals what? 9. There are 9 innings in a regulation game. There are 9 players on a lineup. There are 3 outs in the game. The maximum of 6 pitches, not counting fouls. It's a maximum of 6. 3 and 2 is full count. Next pitch, you're done. Right? One way or the other. There are 30 teams in Major League Baseball. 3 divisions of 5. 15. 1 plus 5 equals 6. 162 games in a season equals a 9. The first professional team was founded in Cincinnati in 1869. What? Ain't that something? Man. You think? I doubt it too. So, go ahead. Oh, okay. Yeah, I doubt it too. Well, let's just talk a little bit about Abner Doubleday. Well, yeah, he was a Union officer. He was well renowned. But Madame Blavatsky and Mr. Orcutt, I think it is, decided to move their operations to Europe. Guess who they made the president of the Theosophical Society? Abner Doubleday. So does that suggest very strongly that, yes, he was the one that created this game? The evidence would indicate so, right? So let's wind this up. I don't know how much time I'm over or under. Do you read that? You know, we're talking about, well, much of this, talk about catastrophes and civilizations and how you survive, how the information survives. And all of that's through means, secret societies, all this stuff. All that your ancestors had to go through for us to be here right now. And how many of us doubt ourselves from time to time? Right. Well, how dare we do that? We come from a legacy of survival that is to never be questioned. Millions of years. And we're still here. And the systems and information has been passed down. And our realities are still the same. Well, what's going on though? What's wrong? How many people have these big computer cell phones?
Yeah.
Almost everyone. You ever gone to a public place, or I went to a Cub Scout meeting once. All the parents were waiting for the kids. Every one of them sitting at the table next to each other looking at the cell phone. What's up with that? Yes, the cell phone is a very highly evolved technological marvel. It is indeed. But while we're so focused on that, a much higher evolved, more highly technological system is sitting right next to us. And we're not interacting. One of the things that Pythagoras said, he said that the number 1 was the most important number because it represented the state of the universe at its first creation. Everything was connected. We are all connected. You're familiar with quantum physics entanglement? Right? Are we not entangled? We have to be. Science would demand that we are. So we need to act like that. Right? Okay. We need to be good to each other and good to ourselves. And take care of business when you have to. And the reason for that is no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. And the only way we move forward is as a unit, as a oneness. We solve problems. We become better tomorrow than we are today. Thank you. What can we talk about? Anything? Any discussion? Pardon me? Well, I don't think we have time for that.